Hello, Guardians. We are back here once again on this beautiful Friday to find Zur. This week, you can find Zur in the tower, right over here in the hangar, standing near some stairs. Let's go. All right, so once we land in the tower, we're going to go ahead and take a left immediately, walk down some stairs, and then head over to the hangar where we'll find Zur. All right, let's see what Zur has in store.
May we speak?
This week he is selling Merciless, which is a fusion rifle. This used to be really a huge part of Destiny 2's meta. Now it's just an okay fusion rifle. Fires faster the more you shoot it, so it's good at doing damage to bosses, but hasn't been the go-to meta strategy for doing DPS for a while. Still, you should pick it up if you don't have it. It's quite good, and you never know when it might come back and be a part of the meta. Then we've got Gwisin Vest, Gwisin Vest. This is a very decent hunter exotic, and the role we got this week is awesome. 67 total. It's got mad resilience, high intellect, and strength. And this is just a good exotic in general. The role for it is very, very nice. So if you are a hunter who at all cares about spectral blades or that subclass, you should definitely pick this up. Citan's not looking so good, unfortunately. Citan's Ramparts is a very good exotic, but this role just isn't great. 59 stats overall. Probably not worth picking it up. This isn't even the best example of this exotic that Zur has sold in recent months. So I would skip this unless you don't have it or for some reason this is the best role you can find. But likely if you have this exotic, you probably have a better role. I have another world. This is a pretty decent Warlock exotic where marking targets buffs ability regen. And this is a decent roll too, 65 total. Really my quibble with this is that it's got a lot of stats and mobility, which unless you're playing a hunter, I don't think mobility is that important. I certainly don't like it really on any of my builds. And it's got 21 mobility. So moving on to legendary weapons, we've got Gnawing Hunger. This is one of my favorite roles this week. Unfortunately, auto rifles aren't really a huge part of the meta, but it does have Zen Moment and Rampage, which are both great perks for an auto rifle, and it's also got the Stability Masterwork, which is quite good for auto rifles. So not a bad one to think about picking up if you don't have it. Next up, we've got 7th Seraph. This is a submachine gun. Vorpal isn't great for submachine guns. 4th Time's the Charm is okay, but just in general, this isn't my favorite submachine gun, and the rolls on it aren't amazing, so I would probably skip it. Eternal Blazon, another one where some of the perks are pretty good, like Killing Wind. Others are not so good, so I would probably skip Eternal Blazon. The caveat there is that this is an ARC scout rifle, so if you need ARC weapons in this slot, primary ammo using weapons, this is not bad to just have in your back pocket. So if you need it, pick it up, but the roll isn't anything to write home about. Next, we've got Toil and Trouble. This shotgun is not my favorite shotgun, and it also has full auto trigger system, which is not a great perk for shotguns in the current meta, especially if you're trying to play PvP. There's no reason you need it to go full auto. Rampage is decent, but I don't really like this shotgun, so I think you can probably skip this. For our future, this is a pretty decent roll. It's got multi-kill clip, which can be good probably in PvE unless you are a sniping god in Crucible. And it's got auto-loading holster, which can be quite good for snipers if you're switching around. So I would say that this roll is pretty situational and may not be useful to you. Personally, I plan on skipping it. This isn't the best roll in the world. So Tarantula, this is a kind of just okay fusion rifle, but the roll we got is pretty good. Field Prep, which gives you more ammo reserves, and Box Breathing, which is really good for linear fusion rifles, are both great perks. It's also got a Masterwork for charge time, which is really good on this weapon. Unfortunately, I just don't really like Tarantula. I think there's better linear fusion rifles, and in this day and age where we've got Storm Chaser from the Duality Dungeon, there's really no reason to use this. But pick it up if you don't have a good roll, but you really don't need this one. And finally, we've got Stars and Shadow. This is a pretty decent pulse rifle in general. It's a solar pulse rifle, which is useful. The roll is not very good. Grave Robber, has to do with melee final blows. Elemental Capacitor, which is not my favorite perk. It does have an extra Origin trait, which is pretty decent, but this is not the best roll we've seen from Xur lately for Stars and Shadow, so I personally would skip this. Moving on to armor, we've got the Titan armor. We'll go over that first. Titans did okay this week with their armor. They really only have one piece that I think you should really consider, which is the Shelter in Place chest piece. This has 64 overall stats, and the stats are in all the right places. Good resilience, recovery, discipline, and strength, which are all stats that Titans typically care about. It's not the highest roll we've seen on a chest piece for Titans recently, but at 64, you should definitely pick it up if those stats match your build. Everything else, 62 on the gauntlets, 59 on the helmet, which is terrible, and 60 on the boots are just okay. You probably have something that's better than these in your inventory already, so focus on the chest piece. If you don't like that, then there's probably not a lot for you this week. All right, let's move on to the armor for the Warlocks. All right, let's take a look at the Warlock Armor.
My will is not my own. Is yours.
So Warlocks this week, they don't really have a lot. Their gauntlets are really low stat. Chest is really low stat. Helmet is extremely low stat, one of the worst rolls Xur has given in a while. The boots are okay with 63 overall stats, but unfortunately they only really focus on mobility, recovery, and intellect, unless you have a really specific mobility build for a Warlock, which I don't know why you would. That's a lot of wasted potential in mobility. And so I don't think the stat roll really works out for this one. And so sadly, if you are a Warlock, not a lot to look forward to this week, unfortunately. And with that, we're going to move over to the Hunter Armor. All right, let's look at what Xur has for Hunters.
These are from the Nine.
So there are a few good rolls for Hunters this week, primarily the chest piece, which has 64 overall, high mobility, resilience, and strength, all good for Hunters. And it's also got the leg armor, which is okay, really high recovery, which is important in this season, 63 overall, so that might be one to pick up. The helmet, not so much. The gauntlets, definitely don't buy those. But other than that, you do have a few good options for Hunters this week. That's it, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video. And for everything else related to Xur or Destiny, stick with IGN.